following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners on Saga 960 AM and those listening around the world on streaming and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana and I'm not a therapist, but I am your source for practical advice for everyday problems using my top 10 sayings for checking in with your best self. This episode, we're going to talk about a very popular topic with my personal clients. Dating. Dating has gotten weird and stressful and hard and very high stakes. Of course, I didn't expect people to just listen to me on this topic because, well, I've been married for 20 some odd years. So I've got an expert coming up for the interview. Blaine Anderson of Dating by Blaine, a men's dating advice coach, will be here for the interview. But first, of course, I'm going to do some setup. I don't want to be totally heteronormative boy-girl stuff. I'll be more general here, but dating does tend to drop into the gender binary. I want to talk about some common mistakes everybody makes when it comes to the entire concept of dating. As one friend of mine put it rather eloquently recently, people never leave the house then complain they don't have a girlfriend. I see a lot of people with completely unrealistic expectations regarding all socializing, but especially dating. And since Blaine is the dating expert, I'm going to spend my time establishing some fundamentals. Consider these building blocks for making sure you're in a good place for dating to be a positive experience instead of a traumatizing experience or a re-traumatizing experience. Now, if you've got a question inspired by this show, you can give me a call, 289-275-9600. That's 289-275-9600. Or send me an email, liana@nottherapyshow.com. If you spell my name wrong, you can just go to nottherapyshow.com and fill out the contact form on the website. Or Twitter, Instagram, Not Therapy Show. I'm doing more on Instagram these days because Twitter's days might be numbered. That's not what we're talking about this week. No, we're talking about dating. Now, that thing about trauma, that wasn't just a joke. If you got unresolved trauma, ideally get that assessed by a professional or at least do some serious work on yourself before you venture out into the dating world. Because anything experienced through the lens of trauma is going to end up reflecting that trauma in some way. And that's not fair to yourself or your date. Trauma makes you more likely to treat wait staff badly, be a jerk to Uber drivers, see red flags that aren't there, and generally act and feel bad crazy. Trauma is definitely the sort of crazy that hurts you. And if you've got trauma, finding love won't fix you. If the person you love has trauma, loving them alone won't fix them. Being in a supportive environment is wonderful, but it isn't a magic pill that solves someone's problems. Now, that's not to say that having any mental health challenge would prevent you from dating. Just be honest with yourself about what you're in something for and how ready you really are to connect with other people. When I ask my clients who come to me seeking dating advice why they want to date, a lot of them say, because I want a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And that's your first mistake. A romantic partner is not an interchangeable person designed to fill a void in your life. What kind of person are you looking for? What's important to you in a relationship? How much time, energy, and attention do you have to commit to that person? And yes, how much money can you spend? This is important because even if the other person is picking up the dinner check, there's still the cost of clothes, personal grooming, transportation, stuff like that. That personal investment is important to figure out how much you're going to put in off the top. And that personal investment isn't just about money. It's about time, it's about effort, it's about energy, it's attention. I'm repeating myself, but this is important. You have to have some balance between work, sleep, school, And that free time spent dating, and then that free time spent pursuing your own stuff that isn't connected to your dating life. It's really hard for people these days because a lot of us are pulling 60-hour work weeks. A lot of people are just too tired to properly date, and that's fair. But that's a sign that maybe you need to take stock and reassess, because if your whole life is living for other people, whether that person is your boss, your partner, your friend commitment, so on and so forth, you're going to get depleted and lose that very important connection with yourself. What stuff do you like? What are you interested in? What's meaningful to you? If you aren't sure, what are you offering another person in a relationship? It's a common misconception that dating will save you from feelings of desperation and loneliness, and sorry, it won't. In fact, if you come across as desperate on a date, it reduces your chances of getting another date, and then you end up just feeling lonely and rejected. You're going to have the most success dating if you go into the date looking to have fun with a sincere interest in the other person, not from a perspective of, I am so lonely, someone please love me, right? I know there's a lot of loneliness out there, and this is kind of counterintuitive, but we'll touch on more of that as the show goes on. Now, I'd say that no one wants a person with a ton of baggage, but I've seen the opposite to be true as well. Too many people are so self-defined by their own challenges that they ignore too many red flags. And that's another risk that comes out of dating through desperation. It might seem like you formed a really deep connection to someone when you learn their entire mental health history on a first date. I hear that people learn somebody else's entire mental health history on a first date a surprising amount. Here's the thing. Every person who's told me that, they got along so well, they learned so much, they learned about all this stuff that happened to them, they've had such a hard life. Yeah, those people eventually end up ghosting. And this isn't surprising when you consider the fact that a person that connected to their own damage probably doesn't have their you-know-what under control. Now, that's very different than, say, a passing remark regarding a personal challenge. Somebody, has minor depression, a run-of-the-mill anxiety condition, that sort of thing. That's a different story. Little comments here and there. All right, no problem. A person should just have enough going on in their lives that they can get through a few hours, focus on their interests and values instead of their struggles. Now, I'm going to drop a really hot take right now. That person you're interested in, that person is a person. And what that means is there are going to be certain basic social skills that are required for dating and relationships to be enjoyable. If you struggle to talk to people in general in casual conversations, that is not magically going to get easier because you find someone attractive. Quite the opposite. There's going to be a lot more pressure then. So any social anxiety you feel as a rule is going to be amplified. Dating really tests your boundaries and goal-setting skills. Again, that desperation will bite you by weakening your boundaries. You want so much for that person to like you that you don't focus enough on whether you really like them, as opposed to just the idea of them. I stress on this show that there's no such thing as perfect, that perfect is a lie, and that's true. But that's why you need to know what you're looking for in a relationship going in. If you want, say someone who's going to support your creative endeavors, if that's really important to you, and a date makes fun of your creative projects, you can decide they're not a good match for you. That's not being unable to handle criticism. That right there is a deal breaker based on what you want. And if someone isn't into you the way you're into them, that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. They could be seriously damaged, or a shallow, superficial person, or another hot take. You could be really great friends, but you just don't click romantically. It happens. And that's why healthy goals and expectations are essential to dating. You can't control how the other person is going to think or behave. You can only control your expectations and behavior. And yeah, it's disappointing when someone you like doesn't like you back, but if that sort of rejection totally destroys your sense of self-concept, consider whether you're really in the right headspace to date. Having an active social life with platonic friends is beneficial whether you're dating or not. And I personally believe that those platonic friendships aren't valued enough in society. I love my friends to death. No single person can be everything to you and for you, and it's really unfair to expect them to be. That is an unhealthy expectation right there. Getting good at friendships means that you practice general social skills and learn how to read people in social settings, which is really important when that extra intensity of attraction kicks in. And that's when not expecting perfection from yourself is incredibly important. We all start off with no experience romantically. We make mistakes and we learn. It's a feature, not a bug of the process. So it's really important to learn how to get tangled up and tango on in conversations. And these are learned skills. Nobody's instantly good at them. If you don't prioritize getting better at socializing before you start dating, those first few or many dates are going to be really painful. You're trying to walk before you run. And that's before you get into the complications of online dating. And that's where my interview comes in. We're going to talk to an expert in online dating for men, Blaine Anderson of Dating by Blaine, after this quick break on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. And we're back. It's time once again for the It's Not Therapy interview. And I know all the guys listening are waiting with bated breath because we've got a dating coach for men as the guest this week. Blaine Anderson of Dating by Blaine has generously volunteered her time to talk to us about dating. And Blaine, thanks for coming on the program. You say dating is about marketing. Let's start there. A lot of people are like, what? I don't want dating to be like marketing, but I agree with you. So how is dating like marketing?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. But yeah, I do say that a lot. Dating is if you're not having luck dating, it is a marketing problem. It is not a product problem. And what I really mean by that is you as an individual are enough. You as your authentic self is going to be enough for the right person. What men often aren't doing is properly marketing themselves. So they aren't showing and sharing all of the great things that they bring to the table with the women that they are interested in. Because ultimately, anybody you meet is only going to know what you show and tell them.
And you do a lot of Instagram content on how to sort of shorthand, almost like dating heuristics about things. And one I loved was the shoes, phone, glasses trinity of if you want to invest in things. And this is one of the reasons I love this show, She-Hulk, because it was full of tangible details about good date, bad date, red flags.
Mm-hmm.
And now, why did you pick the shoes, the phone, and the glasses? Because on the one hand, you're saying you're enough, but on the other hand, hey, you got to market that enough. So why those things?
So that is definitely, a more superficial take on things, but it ultimately is important. It's when you meet a woman, especially when it's in person, but even, if you met online and then you go and meet up with her, she is going to take in a few things right off the bat. And there's the obvious things like hygiene and grooming that, go without saying, I think. But underrated areas that women pay attention to and men don't always think about is their shoes, their glasses, and their phone. And those are things that if you invest in and you take care of them, you can have them for a long time. The phone obviously might need to be upgraded sooner than the others,
Hmm.
but they're just small things that if you take care of them, you have good style there. She's going to take notice, or even more importantly, not notice that they're bad if you're meeting the standards.
Right. Now you say it's superficial, but it is, but it's not. And I think this is the difficulty with sort of cross-gender dating,
Hmm.
where what a guy thinks he's sending is not what a woman is receiving.
Yes.
And to me, those little things show that somebody has a solid self-concept and they take pride in themselves. They do little things for themselves. And that's something you assert a lot. You tell guys to be more selfish. And I
Hmm.
wonder if you can delve down on that, because I think it's the same thing that I'm saying when I tell people to be the hero of your own story.
I love
But
that.
I'll let you explain what you mean by, if you want to attract women, be more selfish.
Yeah, so this actually like gets into the nice guy phenomenon. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the clients I work with self-identify as nice guys. They maybe have female friends, like people tell them they're really nice. They go on dates and they get the "you're nice but"
Mm-hmm.
text. And this comes down to that they often are putting other people before themselves. And when you first, and obviously if you are in a relationship or you are an exclusive or married, like there are times where you are selfless and
Mm-hmm.
you are supportive of your spouse. But if you have just met somebody, you should not be bending over backwards for them. That shows that you don't have boundaries. That shows that you don't respect yourself. So stand up for yourself, especially early on. Say no to things that you don't like. Don't go out of your way for somebody who wouldn't do the same for you. Take pride in, taking care of yourself, because ultimately, when a woman is getting to know you, she is going to draw on how you treat yourself as how she should treat you and how she should think about you. So if you're lukewarm on yourself and you're not putting yourself first, like why would she?
Yeah, and the nice guy tends not to be nice to himself, right? So how
Hmm.
nice is he? Does he even understand compassion, empathy, that sort of thing if he can't do it with himself, right?
Yeah,
And
practice it with himself.
that ties into the whole creepy thing. And I hear this so much from personal clients, the creepy thing. They're afraid of coming across as creepy. And the weird creepy paradox is that if somebody is really worried about seeming creepy, they tend to come off as creepy, right?
Yeah.
So how does someone, and I hate asking negative option questions, right? How does somebody avoid being creepy? That just makes them self-conscious and makes them more likely to be. So how do people anti-creep? How are they the
Yeah.
opposite of creepy, right?
Well, so two things on that. So on one hand, I do agree with you in a certain extent that if people are like super hyper focused on being creepy, oftentimes they can come off as creepier because
Mm-hmm.
they're like being really cautious and doing weird things. But also on the flip side of it, what I have also seen is guys are so worried about coming off as creepy that it leads to inaction and they actually
Mm-hmm.
just aren't doing anything at all, but then they aren't meeting women, they aren't, dating, they aren't having the
Yep.
dating life that they want or deserve. So it can go either way for sure. And either way, it's not good. It's not propelling you in the direction of meeting somebody you're excited about, whether you're being creepy or being so scared of being creepy, you're frozen into inaction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think a few things that initially, if like this is something that as a man you're worried about, one of the most important things is just understanding what women perceive as creepy, because that's something that I found in my research and why I actually conducted the census like research and interviewed 2,000 women, was because I realized guys didn't know what creepy was, and
Mm-hmm.
that led them to being like, well, I don't know what to do next. So my data, my goal was to really get into the specifics of what women find as creepy so men can just have a better understanding of it, and then ideally avoid that behavior, because a lot of this stuff, like if we go over the list, it's like, oh, well, duh. But then it's like, are you actually thinking about what that means? Obviously, you're not going to be doing things that aren't you intentionally think is creepy, but
Hmm.
sometimes small actions or things you do can fall into categories that do creep out women and you don't necessarily realize it. And part of that is because women, or excuse me, men don't face the same costs as women from, being out in public or like the dangers that they could face from strangers. So they don't
Hmm.
always have empathy for that or appreciate that women are just going to view everything from a different lens
Yeah, every woman is screening for red flags constantly,
all the
whether
time.
we're aware of it or not. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
And
And men just aren't don't live that way, so it's hard for them to appreciate it oftentimes.
yeah, and that's a really interesting disconnect that you hear a lot of men express frustration now. Why do I have to take the initiative? Why do I have to make the first move? You say I should be accepted for who I am, but. And I do think that is a lack of understanding of what women are making choices based on. So, I
Yeah.
mean, does my understanding match up with yours? Is basically it's about self-control, basically us being assertive enough to be in control of yourself, and then
Hmm.
basic consideration of somebody as a whole person.
Yeah. Yeah. Empathy and just considering what it is like for the woman is one of
Mhm.
the pillars of what I teach in my dating masterclass and what I talk about with men because it's going to be really hard to be successful with women, especially in the long term, if you're not able to empathize with them and understand at least, you know, from a high level where they're coming from and why they want what they want and why they think the way they think. And doesn't mean you have to PhD in psychology, but just some
Right.
basic understanding and consideration will go miles in improving your interactions with women.
Okay, we have to do some basic consideration for advertisers. So hang on. Blaine will be back after this. Blaine Anderson, dating coach for men, Dating by Blaine, will be back with us after the break, and we're going to talk specifically about online dating, the final frontier with modern dating. Back in a bit on It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kirchner. I'm still not a therapist, and we are still talking dating this week. Back after this quick break. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back on It's Not Therapy. We're still talking to Blaine Anderson, Dating by Blaine, dating coach for men. Now, before the break, I said we were going to get into online dating and the unique challenges for men, the unique challenges for women as well in online dating. I hear all the time that online dating is overwhelmingly male, that
Mm-hmm.
the gender skew is just so much quote unquote in favor of women, but then women are getting, creepy hit on interactions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that true? And what does that mean for people doing online dating?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's absolutely true.
Okay.
Top of funnel, women have way more option than the guys. There are way more guys online dating. And then those guys have way less options than the women, where men and women have different problems online dating.
Mhm.
Men aren't getting enough matches. They aren't getting the matches that they want. Women have so many matches, so many guys in front of them that it's hard to distinguish good from bad. And that is
Mhm.
overwhelming. And, don't get me wrong, not fun either.
Mhm.
So they face different problems. That's absolutely true. And so online dating with it has its challenges for both,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I think dating generally has its challenge for both. If you talk to women, they tend to think guys have it easier. And then if you talk
Yeah,
to men, men
that's
think,
right.
women have it easier. Everyone
Yeah.
thinks the grass is greener on the
Yeah.
other side. So for men, the things that they need to consider to be successful dating online is different than what women need to consider. For men, keeping in mind that women are looking at thousands of profiles and basically have their pick of the litter, they need to design their profile in a way that is going to stand out from the thousands of other profiles. If you have a generally good profile with decent photos and you filled out the prompts, that is not enough to
Mhm.
actually get a match and go on a date. Whereas for a woman, like that's enough. A woman can have a picture of a tree as her first photo and still end up with matches. Where a man like needs to have a professional photo shoot like really do like multiple drafts of his bios, probably have a woman look it over and help it like
Right.
get to where it needs to be in order to just get like a couple matches and dates. And that doesn't mean, online dating is hopeless for men. It's absolutely obtainable to, have success dating online, but you just have to put more work into it.
Now is that it's funny, but it's true. And people
Mm-hmm.
listening to this are probably right now going, Lasai, right? This is too hard. And then you get
Yeah.
the whole, I call it the Thor paradox, right? What men think women like about the Marvel Cinematic Universe Thor is not what women actually like about the Marvel Cinematic Universe Thor. And I am not a Thor girl. So I had to ask a friend who's really into it, and guys think it's about the six pack and the broad shoulders. And my friend said, no, he's strong enough to protect me, but he's kind enough to never hurt me. Is that
Mm.
something you found, that men think different things regarding appearance matter and they miss the mark?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What men generally think women want, I have found to be way off the mark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Are you familiar with the 666 rule?
Yes, it drives me crazy.
Same.
It's not true. Okay, the
No,
666
it's
rule.
not
I've
true.
heard different versions. A six-figure bank account over 6 feet tall, and then the other six varies from um something I can't say on the
Six pack
radio
abs.
to, yeah, six-pack
Oh,
abs. Right. Okay, I heard
and the
something
thing
else
you can't say on the radio.
a
Yeah.
little lower than the abs. Right. So that's basically it. It's this really stereotypical, almost misogynist view of what women are looking for.
And it puts men, I think it's also almost like an excuse. It's like, well, I'm not 6 feet tall, so like it's hopeless. Like, what's the point?
Right.
And what men are getting wrong when they assume that women want the 666 or the Thor body or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is they're giving up the control, which I think in certain ways
Mm-hmm.
is they're like, oh well, it's not me anyways. Like, what can I do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's not taking responsibility or action. And what they're missing is that women value what it is like to spend time with you, the feeling they get around you, more than they value almost anything else. And yeah, sure, there are women out there who are gold diggers and only
Mm-hmm.
want to date guys for their money. But do you really want to be with that type of woman? No. So, like, if that's what she's looking for, good riddance, move on, and you can find a woman who is going to value you for what it feels like to spend time with you, how you make her feel. And that's something that is 100% in a man's control.
Yeah. And I do find guys get hung up on that one bad experience they've had in the
Yeah.
past, and tend to generalize that. A male client of mine says, well, because men, it's all about ego. Everything is about me, and I can't stop that from happening. So, this one woman rejected me for not being 6 feet tall, and now I just assume that every woman's going to do it. And I loved that candor. But at the same time, I'm like, that does get sort of embedded, right? And that
Yeah.
shatters a man's confidence, and that does impact, like you said, it creates sort of an inertia. They
Yeah, and
don't
it's
make
a
the effort.
limiting belief.
Yes.
And yeah, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think women don't like you because you're short or because you're ugly or because of whatever, especially physical trait that you're
Yeah.
telling yourself, that is going to come out in your interactions, even subconsciously. I always say this, women have a sixth sense for, things that you are thinking or feeling that maybe even you're not
Yes.
totally aware of, and definitely that you're not saying out loud. And that is going to come through in your actions, in your voice, in your cadence, in ways that you can't even like put your finger on. She's going to sense it. So if you're thinking I'm too short, she doesn't like me, or I'm too ugly, my nose is too big, whatever it is,
Mhm.
she might not necessarily be like, oh, he's thinking that, but she is not going to think, wow, this guy has got it figured out. This guy is confident. This guy makes me feel good. If you're not feeling good about yourself, like, how is she supposed to feel good about you?
Right. And that's the kind of brain worms that women are hoping their partner like gets them away from instead of more into, right? Because we all do that to
Yeah,
ourselves too, right? Now,
of course.
the other thing you talk about, I think it was on Instagram, that I found very interesting, and I want to touch on this last point because we don't want to give away too much for free. We want people to check out your content, right? But over investing, I thought this was
Mm,
absolutely brilliant because it's a boundaries thing again,
yeah.
right? People think this is being nice. People think this is being uh supportive, but it can come across as overbearing or the dreaded creepy.
Yep.
right? So how does overinvesting work and how do people avoid doing it?
Yeah. So I think guys fall into this trap, especially when they get stuck in this online dating cycle
Mm-hmm.
of feeling like they don't have a lot of options. So all of a sudden they meet one pretty girl, one girl who has a good profile on, the dating app, and they overinvest head over heels. And they're imagining a future with this person that they actually do not even know. And
Right.
then when this woman rejects them or unmatches them, they get in their feelings about it, and it affects their confidence, and it affects how they interact with future women in relationships. And the reality is, they never, even if you've been on one or two dates with a woman, you ultimately don't really know that person. You don't know
Mm-hmm.
if that person is a good fit for you. And so over investing, and then, if you're over invested, you're going to get in your feelings when things don't work out, and it just creates a cycle of negativity around dating and
Mm-hmm.
not getting the results that you want. And that's just one example. Also, the boundaries that you touched on, if you're not having boundaries with women, that goes into the self-respect and the nice guy category as well. So there's just so many problems with overinvestment.
Yeah, that just confirms one of the things I thought, that a lot of guys make the mistake right off the bat regarding dating. I want to get a girlfriend. Well, there's your
Hmm.
problem right there, right? You want to meet a particular person. You don't just want somebody to fill a hole.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
know what? Women do these things too. So
Yes.
it's funny because on my social media or wherever, guys will be like, women do this too. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm not a dating coach for women. I'm a dating coach for men. So I'm focusing on how I can help you improve your love lives. So anyone out there listening, well, it's like, well, girls overinvest. It's like, yeah, we absolutely do. Women do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Both parties do it, and it's bad both ways. It's like the same thing when you get the stereotypical like needy girl who's like a stage 5 clinger. That's
Right.
the same thing, overinvestment.
Yeah. Why did you decide to focus just on men?
So I felt like I had a unique perspective when I got into this, especially there weren't a lot of women dating coaches for men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think women have a unique and great perspective on what men need to know to have thriving dating lives. And a lot of the stuff I saw out there was very pickup artist focused, very
Yes.
manipulative, and I didn't like that. And I also felt like by helping men, I was inherently helping women, and I love women. So might as well help both parties have more fulfilling dating lives.
All right, you heard it. Dating by Blaine. Blaine Anderson, dating coach for men. Blaine Google's really well. She's on Instagram. She's on TikTok. She's on your. She's
YouTube.
got a website, YouTube. How can someone find you? Datingbyblaine.com or just Google. Go anywhere. You're everywhere.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. Contact me anywhere. Datingbyblaine.com is the best way if you want to get some of my free resources, free guides, or apply to work with me. But if you just want to get a sense of my style and my coaching and my beliefs, then check out my Instagram, my YouTube, or my TikTok.
What should guys do to prepare for a first session with you?
Well, first of all, fill out the form, get ready, and
Mhm.
then think about, your past experiences. That's always what I like to talk about first, is like what brought you to where you're at today, and then what's actually happening in your dating life today. And that's the best way to then form a plan forward of how we're gonna correct path and get you the thriving dating life that you deserve.
Blaine, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
When we come back for our final segment on It's Not Therapy, we're going to touch more on that neediness, how to avoid it, and what to do if you're feeling it. Back in a bit. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back on It's Not Therapy, talking dating. And I left some extra time in the final segment of this episode because I know what some of you are thinking. There hasn't been enough detail in the advice this episode. I hear you. It's very hard to get specific regarding this stuff in an open format like this. Something that's the perfect response for one person will be precisely the wrong thing to say to another. There's no way to 100% the friendship or dating game. So if you have specific questions, give me a call, 289-275-9600. That's 289-275-9600. Or email me, Liana at nottherapyshow, Liana at nottherapyshow. Or go to nottherapyshow.com and fill out the contact form. Or Twitter, Instagram, at Not Therapy Show. Lots of ways to get in touch. Now, I said there's no way to 100% the dating game, but there's one thing that's 100% guaranteed to attract the wrong kind of person and repel the right kind of people. Excessive neediness, as Blaine talked about. Neediness is a problem because people want to be wanted, not needed. Even if they think they want to be needed, people actually want to be wanted. Long-term relationships are rewarding, but they're hard. You need to put in the work and share the load. If someone's incredibly demanding, needy, or controlling right off the bat, that's not good for the long-term health of the relationship, because in tough times, everybody gets more demanding, needy, or controlling. So if you start at a high benchmark to begin with, you're going to hit the breaking point when things get tough. The other thing is that pickup artist tactics exploit things like neediness. Even incredibly attractive people are needy in some ways. Think about it. If someone spends that much time and effort on their appearance, that's because people thinking they're physically attractive is a priority to them. She says, having not had a haircut in about 6 months, make of that what you will. Pickup artists, people who use manipulation and some pretty narcissistic tactics to, they believe, punch above their weight class in dating. Pickup artists use a tactic called negging. Subtle insults based on the research that people with lowered self-esteem are more compliant. Here's the problem with that tactic. 1, it doesn't work on everyone. 2, it's designed for very attractive people. 3, it's based on the assumption that extremely attractive people get approached romantically a lot. And that's not always true, because a lot of people are intimidated by very attractive people. So going up to somebody you think is incredibly attractive and acting like they're so lucky to just be around you and receive your attention, that has as much likelihood of making them think you're a narcissistic jerk as getting their interest. The only people you're going to attract that way are people motivated by self-esteem deficits. Do you want that? No, that way lies madness. Instead, focus on having a good conversation with someone. Your goal, that healthy goal that you can control, is to pay them an honest compliment about something that isn't appearance-focused and ask interesting questions so you can learn something about them. People like giving recommendations, so asking for advice on what to order, for instance, whether that weird malt cooler they're drinking is any good, that can be an icebreaker. Now, pro tip on whether that weird malt cooler is any good? It's not. All those things are disgusting, but it's a way to start a conversation. And if you do get someone talking, it's really important to be positive but not arrogant, because people these days know all about the superficial charm of narcissists. Pickup artist tactics like premature intimacy, both with physical touch and personal details, are now well known thanks to the internet. If you're a naturally kind of touchy person the way I am, it's good to hold back a bit on that early on. Among other things pickup artists do. If you're not sure about pickup artist tactics, go online, read up on them so you don't accidentally end up seeming like one. Because pickup artists seems like narcissists. You're only going to attract damaged people. In general, authentic conversation is the best way to go here. Really look for signs of those core values that are important to you, as well as common interests that give you something to talk about, because, you know, my top 10 phrase, in the long run, core values are more important in relationships than common interests. So whatever you do, don't lie to get someone to like you. That's going to come out sooner or later, and it's going to be bad because lying goes against most people's core values. If you don't understand the reference someone is making to an obscure band, movie, or in my case, Silver Age DC Marvel Comics heroes, admit you don't know what the heck MODOK is, but if you're interested in finding out, right? I don't need somebody to know the ins and outs of Plastic Man, even though I think Plastic Man's cool, right? Don't say you love something that you don't know anything about, because you'll just end up looking fake. And fake is obviously bad. Remember what Blaine said about people with a lot of options having trouble separating good matches from bad matches? It's true. And any red flag is going to put you in the bad match category. And fakeness is a big red flag. Now, if things go well after you strike up a conversation, especially if you make the person laugh, it's appropriate to ask them for their number, or if you're not feeling that daring, their social media contact info. Then send them one message, one text, one DM, whatever, with some sort of meaningful content. Like a reminder of that thing they recommended, the weird thing that you didn't know anything about, that you want to watch, but you can't quite remember the name of it. And if they respond and they remind you of it, then you better watch it again so you don't seem fake. Don't use these powers for evil. Use them only for good, okay? If they don't respond right away, wait for them to respond. Don't bombard them with texts or DMs. If after a few days they haven't responded, maybe send them one other message, real chill, but that's it. Any more than that is overinvesting. You don't know this person. You don't like this person. You like the idea of them because you don't know them. And if you lean too much into that idea of the person, it overshadows the actual person. And that's setting a ton of expectations that they can never meet. Now, Blaine mentioned that dating is all about that feeling people have around you. If you're happy, especially happy with yourself, that feeling is more likely to be positive. If you're bitter about life, or at least your dating life, that's going to come through and people are going to be much less interested in being around you. And it's easy to get bitter about dating. The creepy guys, the clinger girls, getting ghosted, rejected, and feeling like you're putting in a ton of effort for very little result. And if you're trans or non-binary, that's a whole other level of complication. If you're, if you're same-sex attracted in a small town without a large gay community, that's an extra complication. It's really easy to get discouraged. And that's why it's important to learn to enjoy the process. A positive mindset going into each activity, each task, that's essential. Find a way to make refining your dating profile fun. Taking the photos should be fun because that'll make the photos more appealing. And it helps to be generally interested in just getting to know people in general. Because then the entire endeavor isn't based on, you know what I'm going to say, outcomes you can't control. Top 10, I repeat this one ad nauseum. Healthy goals are based on things you can control. And again, this ties into being the hero of your own story and not anyone else's. Men are screening for signs of bad crazy. Women are screening more often for signs of danger, but also bad crazy. The two overlap, right? And if you're secure in yourself, if you like yourself, you're going to pass both those screening processes much more easily. When you're compassionate with yourself and feel secure in yourself, you're much more likely to stand out authentically in the right ways. And obviously that self-compassion, that feeling good about yourself is something we do all the time on this show. But I'm going to give you a few quick tips to tamp down on that loneliness and desperation so you don't carry it into dating, right? Because we've just been, don't be desperate, don't overinvest. Like, ow. I know, I don't like to leave you guys hanging. Now, none of this has to do with jumping into dating right away. Sorry, you have to be ready for it to get good results. The best thing to do if you're feeling lonely is not jump into romantic stuff. It's to focus on stuff you enjoy, platonic friendships, join a class or a club, even if it's something like an exercise class, right? Check out meetups, see what's in your area, go down to the local community center, see what they have. Another thing you can do is volunteer for something. Now, I know right now a lot of volunteer pools have just been wiped out because of COVID. So if you do have the time at, your local animal rescue or food bank or any group, youth club, anything like that, they're probably looking for volunteers because they're rebuilding that network after the pandemic lockdowns. Even talk to friends online. Watch the social media doom scrolling that can cause upward social comparisons, colloquially known as FOMO, fear of missing out. But one-on-one conversations, those are good. Reconnect with people you might not have seen in a while, friendships you've been neglecting. That's a really good way. Another weird way, just talk to random people while you're out. This is something I learned in therapy and I was like, oh, come on. But yeah, just having a pleasant conversation with the barista or the checkout person or something like that. It can make you feel connected to other people in a safe, kind of non-committal way. And the best way to open yourself up to these sorts of exchanges is to not be on your phone the whole time you're out. People watch, become more aware of your surroundings. It's kind of cool sometimes. And of course, eat right, get enough sleep, exercise, get those rest moments where you can just daydream. Really super important. And it's important for me to keep track of time, and I'm down to my last minute. So what are we going to talk about next week? It's kind of in a state of flux, but I think I'm going to deal with prepping to fend off the holiday blahs, because I have heard from clients that the seasonal affective disorder is kicking in. That seasonal depression is starting to hit them. People are starting to go, the days are dark. I just want to sleep. And we're into the holiday season. All Mariah all the time. I actually like that song. Yeah, I just admitted that in public. For some people, all they want for Christmas is to not feel blah. So we're going to talk about that maybe next week, maybe in the coming weeks. I'm not sure, but that's the plan right now. Until then, take care of yourself, socialize, see some people. 'Tis the season. And I am Liana Kersner. I am still not a therapist. This has been It's Not Therapy. You're crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. Talk next time.